All right, hello. I'm here with Jimmy today. Jimmy is a HIV POS person who I'm going to have a chat with today because it's HIV Long-Term Survivor Day coming up. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm
Yourself?
Good. I'm glad. I don't think it's how this works, but it's fine. I'm good.
Sweating? Palmy? Nervous?
I thought I'd be more nervous, not going to lie. So we're here to talk about, so you've been living with HIV for
36 years.
36 years. Do you know when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, April 88.
April 88?
1988.
1988. Well, I hope it was that 88 because if it's either in the future
I'm feeling
or in the
old,
past,
but not that old. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're either a time traveller or a time traveller. Yeah. Anyways.
I'm 51 as of last week, so yep.
Wow. It's a long time.
Been a fun ride.
So I guess I wanted to ask about, so when you were first diagnosed, what kind of, how was that? What was that experience like for you?
I'd been having health problems for a few years.
Yeah.
So it was just part of a normal full blood group testing.
Yeah, they just
So I didn't actually go in to be tested for.
They just gave you the works, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Were they trying to figure out what was happening, or?
Yeah, well, we weren't getting any answers because I think I was just being tested for things as a child.
Okay,
But,
yeah. So they went for all the basics as a young person.
But
yeah.
someone, obviously doing the bloods, ticked me off as an adult. So then there's all different type of screening things. Like back then, you don't test non-sexually active children for STDs and stuff.
I mean, I imagine they usually don't do that.
Yeah. But that's how I found out I was having tests for other health issues going on.
Yeah, okay. So it was kind of coincidental find, or was it the HIV was causing the other health issues and they by coincidence?
Yeah, my seroconversion was quite bad on my nerves.
Okay,
sort of peripheral neuropathy, which I still deal with today. But back then it just was overbearing and ongoing lung infections and pneumonia all the time. I just couldn't work out what was going on. So, until I got tested as an adult, and then that's how we found out. So,
wow.
It was not expected.
No, that makes sense.
I wasn't a sexually active teenager. I sort of got it a different way.
Yeah,
But, it was all, late 80s, early 90s, so I sort of had also recently had come out as gay. So back then it was, I haven't kicked out of home and all that. So as soon as that all happened, I didn't have any family support or know any friends or anything by that time because I just ran away from home.
Yeah.
But, so it was
so you had to
a lonely process to go through on your own, especially back then. So
it sounds like it.
But then, of course, once I got involved with services and stuff like that, it's different, of course. But different for me because I was so young and everybody else that I met through the organisations and stuff were, a hell of a lot older and had different life experiences. And, of course, then there is the issue of how it's acquired. And I didn't relate or have anything in common with all the other people.
It wasn't sexually transmitted for you. So
and so I did get to grow up with a lot of the kids that got it through haemophilia and birth and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so that was my group that I got shoved with and I grew up with. So,
did you ever feel out of place in that group?
No, not in that group because we're all going through the same thing, even regardless.
So you did get a sense of community in the end, at least. How long do you reckon that took? Once you first got involved with those services?
I sort of ran away from home at the same time. So I sort of got homeless youth organisations and stuff sort of direct me to organisations that we know of now that I didn't know of back then. Because I wasn't a active gay man in my 20s or 30s or whatever, so that knew about these organisations because, they weren't advertised like they are today in the 80s and we didn't have phones and social media and so it was sneak down to the local phone box and try and ring
try and ring and
services that might talk about other services if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So pretty hard back then, but or relying on print.
Print resources like
print resources, seeing the gay newspapers in Oxford Street and stuff, the Star Observer and Campaign and Outrage, and that's where you got all your stories from.
But then also you had to deal with potential stigma and discrimination that came from looking at that, especially in public.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it was a pretty wild ride for you.
Yes.
Yes, that makes sense. It was the 80s.
And 90s wasn't, early, late 80s, early 90s. So different. It was so different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially back then. I mean, people get diagnosed these days, and of course you've got antiretroviral therapy and things. I mean, back then you could meet someone who wasn't positive, and then they're positive, and within 5 years they passed.
Yeah.
So people like other people, myself and people like myself, we've got so many multiple losses of friends and stuff in the early days.
Yeah.
And compared to today, it's very rare to hear of
someone dying from AIDS-related illness. Yeah.
Because people are living 30 years. I mean, in the 80s, it was people were dead within months of being diagnosed because they'd been living with it for so long they didn't know.
Yeah.
And then, depending on other lifestyle things.
Yeah. What got you through all that? Because there was a lot going on, clearly, both physically and like kind of emotionally and mentally. How do you know? Is it just kind of...
I don't know. I was just had a birthday last week, and so I was reflecting.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm over 50.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I can't believe I'm over 50. Whereas I had that in my head from the young days is that you won't reach 20. And then you reach 20 and then next minute you're 25 and they're like, oh, you're just really, really lucky.
And you just never really expected to make it to 20?
Well, even not even 20, and then now I'm 50 plus. So it's a bit of a head...
Do you think that's had like a long-term effect on kind of like your psyche, on how you view the world? This kind of going from I'm going to die to no longer being
I think it would, because, I mean, I don't remember any... I've been exposed to it for such a young age that I don't have any other memories of not thinking that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know what it's like to be a normal teenager or a young adult with no dramas above your head. It's just always been there. But I was one of the lucky ones. But, by the time I was, 17, 18, I'd already buried a dozen friends that I was growing up with since I was 15.
Yeah.
Let alone I'm the last of my group that I know that's still alive now.
Wow.
That was, 126 something. The actual close friends that I've actually lost.
Wow.
Let alone associates. And when you're in, doing stuff within all those organisations and stuff, of course, everybody you meet's positive. Yeah, so everybody that I knew had it. So and back in the old days, I mean, you'd wake up to 5 or 6 people a day dying, and you had to choose whose funeral you went to or not, because you couldn't take 5 days off work. All that stuff. And I'd been to many funerals myself where I was the only person there.
Yeah.
So
if you had to guess, and you're happy to answer this question, roughly how many funerals of POS people do you think you've been to? Wow, that many.
80.
80, wow.
And they're just the ones that you just went to. A lot of people didn't even have funerals in the early days.
Wow, really? Because of stigma, or they weren't...
Well, I don't know if it was stigma or if it was just that they died with leave and had no one to bury them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been to a lot of paupers' funerals.
Yeah.
Of, brothers and stuff, which I thought, does your heading. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I guess I wanted to ask...
But it's different these days. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, I've had friends that are positive that have passed recently, but they didn't pass from HIV. They had heart attacks or...
Had other health issues. Yeah. So that's a big thing with the POS community is most members of the HIV POS community are
passing from other things.
Yeah, we have an aging HIV positive population overall, and so the health concerns are different because ART is pretty solid overall, and it's not
like you've had a group of patients that you've followed around for 20, 30 years like you do with other illnesses and stuff and go, what do these drugs do? I mean, we know they work.
Yeah.
But, is long-term toxicity problems to your heart and your liver and your lungs and all that stuff.
There's all these like long-term...
taking these chemicals.
It's really still like almost like a drug that needs more research, and we'll have ongoing research because it just hasn't been around long enough.
I think basically every positive person that takes them is the trial in my lives. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm obviously not a clinician, so take it with a grain of salt.
These drugs weren't tested for 20 years, then put on the market.
Exactly.
They're put on the market first.
Rush.
And I'm an old AZT baby. I remember being on AZT. And
what's AZT?
It was one of the big drugs in the beginning.
Okay.
But it had...
So before we had ART, I take
Yes,
it?
yeah. Very highly toxic. A lot of people even died from just taking the drug. Right. It was a big thing.
Okay. So
AZT was a big thing.
So it was more like a short-term solution to a long-term challenge.
I mean... These days, someone would be diagnosed with HIV.
Yeah,
but in the old days, people, they'd probably already been living it with because we didn't know it existed for 5, 7, 10 years even.
Exactly.
Some people may have even been exposed in the 70s, but
it's not really.
A lot of those people weren't found out that they had HIV.
Yeah.
They were told they had HIV, but they actually had AIDS because they'd already had it for 10 years.
Yeah,
and then.
So
that's why the death rate was so high back then compared to these days. Because it had already been
happening.
Yeah, because early intervention is the best.
Exactly. So I guess I spoke about asked how you felt when you were diagnosed and in the early days. I guess I wanted to ask, if you're comfortable talking about it, of course, about how living with HIV affects you specifically in the mental aspect now. Is that something you're comfortable to talk about? Because that's a very confronting modern thing. So feel free to...
Well, it's still there every day. I mean, you've got to get up and take pills and work out, especially with my regime, I've got a pill that has to be taken before I eat and one after I eat or before I eat or after I eat. So there's that routine.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning and at night time. So there's the reminder.
Yeah.
But because I've been doing it for so long, I just don't know any...
You didn't know any
different,
yeah. So overall, living with HIV, at least the medication side of things, doesn't really affect.
But I just put it into the sort of the same bracket that I've got diabetes now, so I've got to take that in the morning. So I just put it all in the same.
It's all just
basket.
Yeah,
just what I got to take.
So it's nothing spectacular, really. It's just it just is. Yeah,
to be healthy and alive.
Yeah, I guess. My next question will be then, so we spoke about kind of the mental stuff. What about physical stuff? How has HIV impacted your physical health from when you were first diagnosed up to now, and as much as you want to talk about in that space?
Well, I've been lucky in that aspect that I haven't had any opportunistic infections yet or any major HIV illnesses.
What does that mean, an opportunistic infection?
KS...
So is it just infections that kind of only really take hold if your immune system is
suppressed?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've totally slipped my mind.
Physical health, how's it affected you?
Well, I don't know if it's to do with HIV or just age.
Yeah.
But I have noticed there's been a drastic change in my lifestyle in the last couple of years. I mean, I used to ride every day and all that stuff, but maybe it's just the Tasmanian weather. It's too cold.
Possible.
You're not doing 15 Ks a day in the cold, which is what I'd done for almost 2 decades before I moved here. So, and I'd always been a health conscious.
Yeah. So it's one of those questions of, is it your environment or is it,
Well, I think if you're expecting to have a good, healthy life, mentally and physically, you've got to know you've got to be living a healthy life.
Yeah.
So I never got into the drugs and the smoking and the alcohol and all that until recently. Like I drink red wine now and I have the odd cigarette. But other than that, walk every day and exercise and
yeah.
And then that's the physical point of it, and from the mental side of it, I don't know. I just get on with it.
Yeah, fair. I guess
I got a dog.
You got a dog, so yep.
Best therapy ever.
Fair.
Yeah, having a pet.
Yeah. I guess when you were first diagnosed, what kind of physical health symptoms were you having?
My seroconversion was all nerve related, so I've still got problems with it today, but it used to be really bad that I was prescribed morphine for it.
So it was nerve pain?
Yeah, it was a peripheral neuropathy. So I've got that in my hands and feet. That's pretty much been the only drama I've pretty much had all these years. I've sort of been lucky, but...
You got lucky overall. Could you maybe
But I went without a lot of things to be healthy, I sort of didn't get into the junk food and the naughtiness and...
Do you regret it? Are you comfortable talking about
of course
that?
No.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I missed out on a lot, but...
but there was value in missing out on it? Yeah. Fair enough.
I had friends that were diagnosed at the same time I was, and they went and lived their lifestyle that they wanted, and I went and lived mine, and I buried them within 5-10 years.
Yeah. So,
be it from illness or in a lot of cases back then suicide.
Yeah.
And I felt that a lot of that came down to. Well, I knew them, and I knew that probably wouldn't have happened if they weren't living the lifestyle, being on drugs all day, every day, all night, every night.
Yeah,
and
they were very complex mental health issues.
Not very good for your mind.
Probably not.
My experience.
Yeah.
And with what I've grown up around and the people, I've watched people go down that track, and it does affect your health mentally and physically.
Long-term drug and alcohol use does have an effect on your health. I mean, any really, but long-term and especially... like high usage. I can't think of the right word for it. Just
above moderation.
Yes, above moderation. There we are. Cool. I guess I think my final question will be, so you're from mainland Australia.
Sydney, yeah.
Sydney. So you moved to Tassie, do you want to say how many years ago, or just you did it?
About 12, 13 years ago.
Okay, so a fair while.
Yeah.
How is it being POS in Tasmania as opposed to in Sydney?
Oh, it's totally different. I mean, I've been here 12 years, and I think I've only met physically a couple positive people, and that's only because I was going to an organisation.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than that, there's no social groups. There's no, like you do in Sydney, you got the luncheon clubs and the and even bars and nightclubs and all that. We don't have any of that in Tassie. So they were predominantly places where people socialised. And positive people socialised that meet at bars or nightclubs or venues. We don't have those here. So, and the people that I've met online that live in Tassie, that's the one thing. There isn't a sense of community like there is in Sydney, where everybody gets together and stuff. I mean, you could live in Tassie for 10 years and not come across another positive person because not everybody's involved in the organisations and stuff. They're just out there living their lives as normal as possible.
Why do you think there's such a, I guess, sort of disconnected POS community? Do you think there's any reason, or it's just like kind of just is that way? Or
well, I don't know, because I'm not Tasmanian.
I mean, you've been here 12 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not identify as Tasmanian, but you've been here long enough to get the gist of it, right?
I think it's... I don't know. I mean, I've been wondering that. There's a lot online and...
Yeah.
Facebook groups and all that stuff.
You said.
But I don't know. I just think people are a lot maybe because things started later here, like with the decriminalisation of homosexuality, things like that. That's also has an effect on socialising and stuff within HIV.
What about
people.
the kind of geographic area is in that where...
Well, we don't have an Oxford Street, Darlinghurst here, so everybody's not living in the same suburb or something, I've got friends in Burnie and Port Sorell and
Yeah. So everyone's like quite spread out geographically.
And they don't even know anyone.
Yeah.
We only know each other online. They've been here 10, 15, or even born here. And it's like some of them I know said, I've not yet in my life met another positive person.
Wow. So, yeah, it's pretty...
But it's not a big, living on the farm with the kid and still holding down and working and whatever, the people that I've come into contact with. It's not... Like in Sydney, it was a lot easier because, that's your identity. You're a gay man with HIV, or you're a man or woman with HIV.
Yeah.
Down here, it's sort of like it's not a big part. It's not like you don't need those letters added to your name, whereas you can be openly those things in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane.
Okay.
But you can't run around Tassie going, oh, I'm HIV positive. It's just different down here. It's not phobic. No one's phobic and stuff. It's just... we've got smaller population, so then you've got the population within minority groups is a lot smaller than they are on the mainland, so people don't, it's even the same with a
bit less exposure, I guess.
And there's no, we don't have a pride centre, we don't have all that stuff, whereas I was subjected to all that stuff in the 90s, so there's always somewhere to go, and there was always other people, and, you had Acon, and you had, the luncheon club and all these things where people
all gathered.
There was something on every day of the week, and every night of the week there was something on, and
there was a greater sense of community for both whereas the queer community and the POS community.
And it's sort of like the gay issue. It's like people are openly gay down here, but it's not the most important thing in the world about them. And I think a lot of people that I know that are positive too, they go, it's not the most important thing about me in my life. So
do you think that's a societal shift in how much more accepting it's become of queer folk, or do you think that's Tasmania specific?
Oh, Tasmania specific.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Did I get that wrong?
No, there's no wrong answer.
No, I'm just thinking, did I hear the right question? Sorry, what did you ask?
I just asked, do you think the reason people are less...
Out,
is because...
I just think you've got a smaller population. I mean, we don't even have a population big enough to have a nightclub.
Yeah. So do you think they do it out of a sense of, I guess... self-preservation or fear, like safety?
No, I don't think people are closeted or it's out of fear. I just think it's
just like less of those spaces to be queer, and therefore kind of let yourself bloom into a very queer.
Yeah. But I mean, if those places like that existed, I'm sure they'd be used, but we don't have them, and so.
No, the best we've got is Judy's these days. So Judy's is a queer dance party that happens once a month.
Oh, okay. I never knew about that. Sorry.
It's fairly new. It's organised by drag queen Pussy Poppins. And, it's always fun.
I'm good friends with Sandy Lagore. Have you ever heard of her?
I have seen her.
She's famous, yes.
Yeah, she does QT Cabaret, which is another queer event that happens, and I go to those.
There's one coming up in a couple of weeks, but I've forgotten where is that on at.
Next QT Cabaret is in Launceston. But I don't know if they're doing that or if it's a different performance.
Yeah,
actually they're performing at Judy's this weekend.
Yeah, I just remember her Facebook. She's saying, I'm premiering at some event coming up. I just can't remember where it was, but I'll look into it.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
No, that's so fine. I guess to kind of finish it all up. So the reason we're having this conversation today is for HIV Long-Term Survivor Day. So I guess I have two questions to come off of that. First one would be, is there anything you would like to say to the POS community regarding HIV Long-Term Survivor Day? Any message of hope, any support, or maybe criticisms for how the community can support each other better?
We can and do live long, normal lives.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is, it's your body and your mind, and we've got to look after both of them and help everybody look after theirs. So I think that's the only thing that I can look at my own past is, I sort of probably didn't party and all that as much as I wanted to. But I look back on it now and I'm sort of thankful that I didn't go down certain roads or fall down certain traps that a lot of our brothers and sisters seem to fall in. And it's also, my experience with a lot of other positive people on the mainland is there was a very high drug addiction and drug abuse within the community. Yeah. And that's all because of mental anguish and stuff. And I understand that. I think about it all the time. I just don't do it. So I understand it. But deep down inside, you just got to really do what you can or get the help that you need to be mentally and physically healthy, because, to have a long life, you've got to be healthy.
Yeah. And I guess kind of the same question, what would you like to say to the not positive community? What do you want them to know, or anything like that? Do you have any sort of message you'd like to give out to them?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's the only way you're going to learn anything, be it from a positive person or an organisation if you're stuck on something.
Yeah, fair enough.
And to, we're your brothers, we're your sisters, we're your fathers, we're your uncles.
Yeah.
Treat us that way.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that will finish us up then, unless there's anything else you want to talk about. No, I got a shake of the head. Cool. All right. Thanks for coming on.
I'll remember later.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
It's always the way.
All righty. See ya.
Thank you.